Welcome to Daring to Share Connection Through Conversation. This is episode 2. I'm Diana Reyers, founder of Daring to Share Global. Today we're gathered with our special featured author, Angela Allen of Volume 2, Deception to Truth, and Scott De Freitas-Graff, and our community guest, Candice Chisholm. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Have you?
Yeah.
So today we're going to be discussing the feeling of contentment amidst this COVID crisis that we're all moving through. Angela has done a great job in her life of using the feeling of contentment to guide her. And so I'm sure it's been a challenge for her to be doing that during this whole pandemic that we're moving through. Feeling all the ebbs and flows of and the challenges of fear and all kinds of things, anger, but also moving towards that positive side of being able to recalibrate towards that feeling of contentment. So how are you doing today, Angela?
I'm doing great, Diana. Thank you.
Beautiful. You're obviously still out at that cottage. You haven't left?
Yeah. Nope.
Beautiful. Lovely.
We're doing it.
So how are you? You know, when I read your story and we worked together on that story, and it took us a little while to come up with that word contentment, or that feeling of contentment, to be able to really describe it for you in a way that resonated with you. So I'm curious to know how you've been feeling as far as contentment or not feeling content. Maybe starting back at the beginning of when the whole self-isolation started to happen with COVID and when things got really real, and
Sure.
how you were feeling then, and whether you were able to maintain your feeling of contentment or whether you needed to shift.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you again for having myself and the other authors and our community guests here. It's a great honor to be able to get on and to share on this platform, really, how most of us are really truly feeling inside. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. So with contentment, how am I feeling during all this? Well, gosh, it's hard to believe it was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago today, our daughter was coming for the weekend, and from Toronto. She was coming for a visit. This COVID thing had just sort of hit, and really we didn't know the magnitude of it. It was the start of March break. And I remember that night we pulled in, and it was like all over the news. And Julia came from Toronto and she said, Mom, like Toronto's shutting down, eh? And I said, well, what do you mean Toronto's shutting down? Because we're in Kingston, so it is a smaller town. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, it's really scary. Like there's a lot going on and they're closing the schools and blah, blah, blah. And then by then we'd heard this. Then we get home, and then the next day our other daughter phones and she's, oh my gosh, Mom, what is happening? What can we do? Are we going to catch this? You know, are you going to die? Or blah, 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 all these questions and fears.
Mm-hmm.
And our son who's in he calls, and he's actually got a really nasty cold that has just developed. And so his fears were coming out, and I found myself just going, whoa, okay, this is a little crazy right now. And I don't have answers really to give any of you other than you just need to take a deep breath. And we have to just sort of figure this out day by day. And really, for me, that is what brings my authentic self to myself, is when I'm feeling terrible, is I have to take a step back and just go, and you just need to live in the moment right now for me. And that was very challenging, because all of a sudden those kids, you know, my kids, I want to protect them and so forth. But I was like, I have to remain calm and just say, we have no control over this, but you have control of yourself and what you're feeling and how you're going to that. So just, you know, take a deep breath, go about what you need to do. So if you need to call your work and find out, if you need to, you know, talk to your landlord or whatever it is, talk to your loved ones, your partner and so forth, just do that. And for me, my true value is family and nurturing. So for me, I'm really being my most authentic self right now. And I'm as devastating as this whole thing is, I'm finding I'm being very useful, more than I have been in the last few years, because I'm surrounded by my family and friends, and I'm giving advice, and I'm cooking, and baking, and giving the hugs to my daughter who's been here for 3 weeks. And I think we, talked about this a little bit the other day, is that during this time right now when there's so much uncertainty, I'm really I'm really just finding that this is such a beautiful time. And it's for me. Now, I can't speak for other people, because I know there's a lot of fear, like we talked about, and frustrations, but I'm able to just be my best, really, at what I do. And I feel so grounded, even though there's, like I said, so much, uncertainty out there. I just feel that as long as I can go day by day by doing what I normally do, I get up, and I talk to the kids, and every day, either through the Facebook or Facebook, through you have
FaceTime. Yeah, that's okay. FaceTime.
Or either through FaceTime, or I've been fortunate. Our daughter has been here for 3 weeks, and we're just talking, and also talking, though, about finding little things that you love, that bring you joy. So I said to Julia, she's actually working right now from home here. She was having a little moment before I got on to the video chat, and I said to her, what's happening? And she was just, really venting a little bit with work, about the stress that she was feeling. And I said, have you been outside at all? And she said, no. I am going to go, though. I need to just go and walk for 15 minutes and that. And so
that's a good thing.
Just finding that balance is whatever your balance is, because my balance is probably different from all of your balance, and I find what gives you structure and stability, in your life, whether it is exercising, whether or not it is cooking for someone, whether or not it is, maybe phoning a neighbor, or whether it is picking up a paintbrush or picking up a pen or a pencil and writing, whatever it is, try to find that outlet and say to yourself that I'm really supposed to be exactly where I am right now. For me, that is just how I get by day to day.
That's fabulous. What I'm hearing from you is, and I had like a big awakening when you were talking about the being present. For me, I've always interpreted that as being like in the moment, joyful, being present, like everything is great. But what I heard just now from you is that being present in the shit too, like that it's okay to feel that. And that's, I've always mandated that within my coaching and everything too, is that we need to feel everything and to move through that. And then the second piece I heard was that within all of that is that you have found purpose within all of that. And what's great for you is that purpose is coming from all the things that you love to do, which is the nurturing and choosing to do that. And I find that a lot of people I've seen on social media too, like people are baking and cooking up a storm. Like same with me, my freezer is full. and reaching out to family and loved ones and being able to give them, the virtual hug and the conversation. And we're having more and more conversations that way. So we're actually, what's interesting is that, like what I'm feeling from you too, is that you are experiencing maybe even more connection right now because it's so purposeful.
Yeah, it really is. And I did say the other day, our kids, they're all in their, 20s, and they're not living at home, and they really have been living their own lives. They call us, but it's more or less just, hi mom, hi dad, and it might be the odd little thing they want to share, as some advice. But right now, I'm very connected. Our daughter phoned this morning, our other daughter in town, and it was so nice. Like when she went to say goodbye to me, I felt like this, like we were FaceTiming, and just the look at her, she's like, okay mom, I love you, I'll talk to you later. Like there's just this like genuine heartfelt concern and love and gratitude almost like
Yeah, I think that people are
calming.
really, they've gone into more reflection about themselves and what's important and who's important in their lives. And it's
Yeah.
really, it's being pushed up, it's being bubbled up to the surface, which is really
And I,
beautiful.
yeah, and I hope that it will last for a while with people. I know that we will get back to our everyday lives. We will,
Well, we have
I
to.
think that we have to. But I do think that there will be people that are very profoundly affected by this whole thing, as far as maybe before they wouldn't have taken that extra, 5 minutes to maybe have a telephone call or
Right.
to sit down and talk to their one in the same room with them, where
Mhm.
now they might go, you know what? I have time for this. We stopped a friggin', we've stopped. I have
Yes.
time for this. And
So it's actually given us the space and the time and energy to be able to experience that awakening.
yeah,
To, because before those awakenings were still coming at us, it's like we just sometimes don't have time to experience them or to allow them to process through us, but we have literally, the whole world has stopped.
and the other thing is when you were talking about the presence, like being in the present right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay if you're present right now. Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yep.
If you're feeling shitty right now
Yep.
and mad,
Yeah,
accept it. Just say,
exactly.
you know what, right now I feel like a big bitch, and I'm gonna vent,
Yep.
and I'm gonna take it, and then I'm gonna let it go.
I think
Like
that's really super healthy.
totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally.
And like I said
That's
on
what.
the last call, I think that you're seeing a lot of that too, that people are being angry and those so-called negative emotions. And
Yeah,
it's actually enlightening for me. Like I like it.
yeah,
I'm like, go ahead, be pissed off, be angry, because you have every right to be.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's and
Great, Ange.
I found too, one other thing is, um, my husband and I, Rob, we've had, I feel like we've been a little bit more on the distant side lately. And I
Mm,
think it's because we have roles right now where in the last few years we've been more connected because, like I said, both kind of embracing this and retirement thing. But it's like now we kind of stepped back a bit
mm-hmm.
and dealing with, you know, the kids, but he's dealing more too with the work and the investments and all that kind of stuff, and his brothers and his mother, sorry. And then, there's me dealing with the kids in a different way a little bit more. So I find that there's been that. And we had a really good conversation today. We were in the car together for a little while, and I said, I really feel like we still need to connect though, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's just, please don't remind me that we've had another death in Canada. Like, just let's not talk about this, what's going on. Let's talk about us and bring it back
That's
to,
nice.
why we're together as a couple and the
Yeah.
things that we like to do. You can easily forget to do that.
Oh, of course.
You can
Yeah.
get,
Yeah, because
and
Hank is always on the TV like that. That's why I stay in here and he's out there, because that seems to work for him. But then when we're together, we're the same way. Like we get together for meals and for tea and things like that, because I am still working and he's doing whatever he does. So then, when we do get together, I sometimes will ask him, so, is there anything I need to know that's come on the news?
right,
Because it just winds me up if I watch it all the time. So then, and he'll just tell me the facts, because we've come to that conclusion too, that I don't need to know everything. I just want to know, like, are we actually flattening the curve yet? Or like, what's happening? Are we moving forward positively or not? And so
yeah,
we're the same. We've kind of come to that as well.
right,
Well,
yeah.
thanks, Ange. That's great. Beautiful sharing. Thank you for all that.
Thank you.
So Scott, how are you feeling with the whole contentment thing? Are you feeling more content at home? I know that you're the enthusiast, so.
Well, I kind of waffle back and forth between, no, I'm okay, and oh my God, I'm going to kill someone. So we tend to go to both ends of the spectrum, but I saw something actually on social media not too long ago, and it's talking about reframing things. And I really do always try to come from a place of gratitude with everything that happens in my life. And, you know, I have those moments of, oh yes, everything's a gift. And, but, you know, sometimes you just don't know why things happen. And so the reframing that I saw was, you know, rather than say I'm stuck at home, maybe say I'm safe at home. And, you know, with some of my health concerns and whatnot, this is the best place for me. And, you know, we have a government that's coming forward with all kinds of things to alleviate some financial pressures. You know, I have a safe, beautiful home with a cupboard full of food and, you know, all the toilet paper I could possibly need until next year. Right?
And a beautiful husband.
Yeah, and I was just going to say.
Yeah, and that too.
And okay, enough coaching. But one of the things I've been doing too to kind of remain connected and feel connected is just randomly reaching out to people in my address book and people on my phone and just like, hey, how's it going? And connecting. And I've been talking to my dad at least every other day. You know, there's some stuff going on back home with my mom. And, you know, I'm really enjoying, for lack of a better word, having the space to process a lot of what's going on. You know, and John's still working. So, you know, we have to be super careful that he doesn't come home with anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I guess at the end of the day, I'm not fearful. I'm not living in that fearful place at all, you know, but it also doesn't mean I'm going to be stupid about things. So
no, exactly. You're being safe. I love that you're connecting with people, and because as far as contentment goes, like that, I would say that that's where I'm the most discontented, is that I just want to, you know, I'm like Ange as a mom, I just want to bring my whole family together in this house and just take care of them, cook and clean for them and sit with them and have wine with them and eat and, you know, and do all that, because that makes me feel content. But they're not even in the same city I'm in, or you know, my son is in Ontario. So that for a while I was really unsettled with. But I think that the fact that it's out of my control, I've been sort of forced to look at that in a different way and recalibrate, like you're saying, or reframe it as in, they're safe where they are, I'm safe where I am, and I can connect with them on FaceTime. I mean, how blessed are we to have that kind of technology? And
exactly.
Same with my parents, and yeah. So I love the reaching out piece.
Yeah, and you know, again, you know, you kind of nailed it there too. There's a lot going on with my mom, who's in a care home right now, and my dad, you know, dealing with all of that. And were this another time, I would already be in London. I would already be there.
Same. I know.
Right there. But I've had to come to that place, that peace where it's like, you know, everything is as it should be. Yeah. And just trust that, you know, she's getting the care, and, you know, obviously I believe that, but, you know, she's getting the absolute best care that she needs. And my dad is taking care of himself and her, and, you know, that she's surrounded by professionals, you know, and again, I have to be okay with that. And I am.
Of course. Well, that's that contentment piece. That's good. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
John.
Diana.
You look about as content as anyone can be.
Interesting. Yeah. The word contentment. And I sort of briefly went back through your story, Angela, because I wanted to remind myself of the perspective that you were bringing when you chose the word contentment to really reflect your life experience. And I mean, just listening to everyone, there's some really sort of neat sort of things that I resonate with when you were talking about being present, for instance. And I think this is a challenge that we've always had as a culture. We're very forward thinking. We're always sort of planning or problem solving, or we're always kind of trying to prepare for the future. But the current circumstances, in some ways, for me, sort of forcing me to come back to the present when I find myself in a state of anxiety, or, you know, trying to think about the future, or trying to prepare for, you know, possible outcomes. So that sense of being in the present, you know, allows me to just kind of, you know, like you say, stop and breathe and touch base and connect with the feelings that are coming up. Because for me, like everyone, oh my goodness, there's been so much discontentment with all the limitations and the inconveniences. And of course, the real fears and concerns, legitimate concerns, people are dying. So part of it is, having a sense of just stop and just what am I experiencing now? And for me, spiritually, a big challenge is when we're faced with any kind of situation that we, would rather not see, is how can we sort of hold space for this experience and sort of just allow it? Because for me, if I resist, the longer I resist and go, no, this shouldn't be, it should be different, all those shoulds, is the more tension and sort of anger and all these other sides that come up. But if I can reach the point eventually that, okay, I'm just going to say, this is what it is. I'm going to hold space. This is the experience, and try not to project a lot of ideas or beliefs about what it should be. And then for me, the other side of it spiritually is to hold some compassion, and hold compassion for myself in terms of how I'm really feeling, and just to honor, even a situation where I was venting to Scott about work. And that was one of the things that was really upsetting me, was the changes, which left me isolated and sort of chained in some ways to my workstation and doing it all alone. That was really hard for me. And it wasn't until I kind of just said, okay, when news announced, okay, this is probably going to be another few months, I sort of intuitively sort of believed that or sensed that. And so once I had sort of realized, what, this is what it is. It's months along. I can fight this. I can resist the way we all fight and resist things we don't want, or I can just let this go with compassion and say, let it go. And that changed for me fundamentally, because I realized there was purpose, there was meaning to what I was doing. And, this is what it is. And if I can bring gratitude, which something else that came up, it's just the appreciation for the little things. When we hear a lot about gratitude, well, it's hard to be grateful when you're so frustrated. But in essence, just looking, even just connecting with the little meaningful things, like being able to see our family members, even though they're from afar. Those little things are all, and then life's in the details, all those beautiful little things we often say.
Yeah.
So that gives me a sense of warmth and gratitude for what is there. And, it's not linear, because I'm up and down. I have my up and down days, and then I come back to it. So all of that, gratitude and sort of acceptance and all of that, as I can get into that and bring that into the present moment, be it, at least a few times that I come back to the present moment, that's where I find my contentment.
That's where you find your contentment. That's beautiful. I think that, what's interesting, what came up for me when you were just talking, is that it's interesting that the greater the crisis or the degree of uncomfortableness that we're having, or, this pandemic it's actually huge. Yeah. So just the degree of that perhaps moves us to feeling more grateful for the smaller things.
Absolutely.
Because it's the big things that we can't have right now. The grand things that we're so used to.
And look how much we realize about what's really important. For some, shopping was an excursion. It was exciting. It was fun. We can't do that anymore.
That was just a daily thing for me. That was not even something I thought was a big deal.
Yeah. And
I like to shop.
But, there's all kinds of things that we sort of took for granted. Or all kinds of activities. But now that we're so limited, I'm realizing the most important things are being with my husband.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Beautifully, you both touched on sort of the challenge of being in the same physical space and yet having individual purpose. And as Angela said, and saying, well, wait a minute, because I'm very much like you, Angela. I was like, well, Scott, let's connect and let's talk about, like, I had a counselor appointment for myself, and I needed to connect with him about that. And there was a beautiful conversation that came out of that. And then recognizing that, okay, for our sanity, Scott's going to go off and do his purposeful connecting and whatever. And I as well will go and do my purposeful, connecting or whatever it is. So we're now learning how to be independent within sort of this space, as well as, sort of finding the time. And I think that's creating the time. Before we took for granted that our loved ones were across the country, we can talk to them anytime. Now we're like, it's important to talk. I need to connect with my loved ones because these are the people we go to in crisis. So we're all in crisis, finding, really discovering what's really and who is really most important to us.
And
Thanks.
Sorry, if you just jump in because I think John kind of touched on this. We're having much more meaningful conversations now because it doesn't end at how was your day?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you how my day was. It was right here in front of that TV. And I talked to a few people on the phone. We're actually having these conversations where it's like, no, really, I need to know an excruciating minutia. What happened when you went to the food?
It's so true, isn't it?
It is.
That's
true.
Okay.
So
sorry.
There's a vicarious thing that's going on to a limited degree, but also it's like now, with a lack of stimulus around us, we can get in and we can get deep and we can start talking about
really quickly.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're funny, Scott. And yet that's very serious. So thanks. Candice Chisholm, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I just want to introduce you as the founder of She Changed It and He Changed It, along with Mike, your husband. And that will all be in the post that we have tomorrow, so people can connect with you if they can.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. So how are you doing to feel contentment? You've been through a shitstorm, lady.
Yeah, to put it. Actually, I love what everyone was saying. There was just so much that resonated. I was trying to write quick notes here.
For sure.
I know. Me and my notepad. As there's so much that resonated. So the big word that came up for me whenever he was talking was it's kind of like a practice. And I've actually, to be honest, this is the first time I've really thought of contentment, like a practice like breathing or yoga or, something that you maybe need to work at. And maybe that's not for everybody, but what I realized is that's kind of been the way for me, my journey. Like, I've always been living, especially for the last little while, I've been living at this crazy high level of stress. And, last 2 years I've been trying to get a tech company off the ground and at least launch apps. And then all the while there, my dad was sick. And then my dad passed away in October. And so there was that arc, of like, okay, so this wasn't as important as I thought it was because this is what happened when my dad passed away. And, I spent November with my mom because they were married for 60 years. And so, I lived with my mom and helped her get to her next phase, which was to move in with my brother. And then a month after that, my granddaughter got diagnosed with cancer. So there goes that arc again. And just, it's that feeling and that ebb and that flow. And it was interesting because at some points I feel like the rest of the world is sort of catching up to where we've been for 4 months. Like we talked a little bit about that before, like we've been self-isolating to an extent. Although that being said, Mike and I would still go out for dinner, the odd time and stuff like that. We've been really self-isolating the baby.
Yes.
And, but when we got that, so it was on Christmas Eve, that news was delivered. Well, the news that she had a tumor was delivered on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And then they said, go home Christmas Day and spend the day and then come to Vancouver, which you mentioned. And, that I've never felt fear, like that fear, never in my whole entire life. No. And it shifted everything in my body, every cell in my body was in pain, and I've never felt that. And so, as we kind of went through that process, to Angela's point, you sort of find that space again. And I, much like her as well, and like you, Dana, and like where it's like, okay, my role, what's my role? My role is to get her healthy, to feed her good food, and I went to work, like I was like, okay, research I made the bone broth that simmered for 3 days, you know, and all of that just to build her red blood cells and everything I could possibly do. And I found so much contentment in that.
Yes.
Because that was my role. And then, so it was again sort of that practice. And so then as we're coming down through this, you know, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. I'm like,
something else.
And episodes again, you know.
Just when you think it can't get any worse.
Well, you know, I had so many moments of, are you
fucking kidding me? Yeah.
Like,
I know.
Really? Are we sure that this is going on right now? And so that was so frustrating for me because I'm like, no, this can't be at the same time. And it's not that we're the only people going through it, it's just that's my world.
Yeah.
And so again, I went through my arc of how do I do this? Because this is now not just my bubble, this is global.
Yeah.
And now I've got to protect this baby from something bigger and more global than, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a practice. And so then I had to kind of find my place again. And so, like, I'm really grateful for this conversation because that actually sort of hit a note for me about, you know, I've always loved yoga, but not doing it. I think it's beautiful to watch.
I love the idea of yoga.
I'm just not built for yoga.
I'm like that too. I'm a yogi. I just don't practice it.
Yeah, like I love the whole concept behind it. I'm just like, yeah, I don't bend at all. So, but that was one of the things that when we were here, and you know, we've moved from Airbnb, like we moved 8 times in, you know, 3.5 months, and you know, we're not those people. We kind of have settled, and although funny what you wish for, because I always used to joke, because my heritage, there's some gypsy in my heritage, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to be gypsy, just have careful what you wish for.
Yes, yes. Because you're one now.
This is what you think, yeah. Turns out, nope. Don't want to be gypsy. But yeah, so, you know, even if like yoga or deep breathing or these practices, they don't come necessarily naturally and easily.
No.
And I think that that's what contentment for me, speaking from my experience, has been. It's been a bit of a practice because as that shifts and as it arcs and as it flows and then they settle, like one of my favorite things has always been water always finds its level. And it does, and nothing's ever really as good or as bad. And so, you know, even when we were here, you know, as you can imagine, trying to get a tech company off in this environment, you know, there's been push and pull and things have happened where I just normally, like if this was in September, I would have lost my mind. And now I'm like, okay, but is it cancer? No. Is it COVID? No. All right, let's roll.
That's amazing.
And that's been helpful. Yeah. So
that's amazing. Yeah. I think that you know, listening to you, I recognize too that it brings me contentment when and I guess that's a piece of gratitude, like what John was saying. Every time I start to feel like this is the most horrible thing that's going on, or how are we going to get through this? I hear stories from different people of what they're experiencing, even on top of this. So, right. You know, I'm experiencing COVID, but has any of my family like been affected, you know, as far as the sickness, the illness? No. And then this morning I heard that my friend's nephew died in Europe from this. And now they're going through all of that on top of it. Or I hear, you know, your story about Alara, which is just breaks my heart. And yet it also, when I follow you on social media, I find so much comfort and contentment actually in the way that you and Mike are responding to it as a family. It's beautiful. So it's really making me rethink because I can be a complainer, you know, in normal times. So I'm really rethinking that. Like even now, I try not to complain. You know, I have a friend who is basically financially done. Like he doesn't even know what he's going to do. And yet, you know, just before we started this call, I looked out and the weed man was doing my lawn. So those are the kinds of things that person would not be able to afford. And it made me think of that. Like, I really don't have anything to complain about. And yet I do. But I find that I can recalibrate and reframe it, like Scott was saying, to go to that place of it's okay. And be present, like what Ange said, you know, be present in that. Like, why am I complaining?
You know,
Just take a moment to shift.
Yeah, to speak to the present. I mean, I have been taught more by my 21 she's 23 months now. She'll be 2 this month, actually. Granddaughter than I've been taught, I think, by Andy. Like, there is no present as a 2-year-old going through chemotherapy.
Totally.
Because she just has no attachment. Doesn't care. There's no 5 minutes from now, and there was no 5 minutes ago. She's hooked up to, you know, we've been really, there's, you know, and Dad is encouraging me to write this because there's been so many lessons and blessings out of this, like so many that I couldn't even begin. It would take me hours to explain it. But one of them is that she just, you know, she's hooked up to a machine that is putting the most toxic chemicals into her blood. And all she goes is as soon as the nurses come and do all the things that they have to do, you know, she's got the central line that goes to her artery, and she just goes, walk. And we're like, okay. So we put her little shoes on, and I kid you not, one day, hanging onto her pole, Mike and I chased her around the ward, and she did 1,800 steps in a day on chemo. And she's just up and down the slide and walk.
Isn't that amazing? Like, how inspirational is she?
I mean, I would be milking it and whining and crying and
I'd be, yeah, I know.
I probably till I died. Because I'd be like, don't you know I had cancer?
Yeah. Well, we have so much baggage, right? That preempts that. Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm like, you know, she's taught me all I need to know about being present, because that baby is nothing but present.
Yeah. So she actually got you prepared for COVID, let's face it.
Like 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like I think
Bring it on.
Yeah. I'm like, hold my beer, yo.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not done. Yeah. Not done saying it, because it is serious. But at the end of the day, it is something that we just take one moment at a time.
Yes. Thanks, Candice. I so appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate you sharing the whole Lara story online. It really is inspirational. Like, I don't know how you're doing it.
Thank you.
I mean, I do, because I know you, and I know that you'd step up into it. So
yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. I feel like we covered a lot, and I think that this sharing is, I feel even better with this call than the last call. It's just becoming it's a really natural flow and really organic. So we will be doing this twice a week. They'll be posted on Tuesdays and Fridays for everybody. And I will include John's information and Candice's information in the posts for anyone who wants to connect with them, as far as counseling with John and tarot reading, and for Candice with she changed it and he changed it. And Angela and I are always here as well if anyone wants to connect with us just to chat. I, of course, have a writing program that supports people through times like this, or just life in general. So feel free to connect with any one of us. And we will see you all next Tuesday. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for what you do.